Excellent, and welcome to Tad Hack, the Conic Tad Hack. And we have Thomas here who's going to be talking around consent and life cycle. So, Thomas, please tell us more.
Oh, thank you, and thanks for having me again, Alan. I always enjoy, being here with you and the whole TAD community. The place where our beacons were born.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
So we it's always a pleasure. So yeah, I want to talk today about it's called the lawful basis extension, and it's a draft I've put into the IETF working group. And so it is has not been adopted by the group yet,
Hmm.
but it's getting a lot of attention and popularity. So
Yeah.
I hope that it would. And the point today here is to introduce the topic to the audience
Yep.
and to elicit their feedback and to gain their support. Um, One of the important things about the IATF is that it's nothing that I'm doing, it's something that we do. And so what we're trying to do here is make it a we and
Yep.
not a me. And so this is a brand new thing for us, and I'd love to introduce it to you. So if you don't mind, I'm going to just dive
Go
in. All
for it.
right.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Sounds good. All right. Hold on.
Oh, just hang on a sec. I'm just making sure Oh, no, I'm recording. Sorry. We're fine.
All good. All good. Okay, that's you. That's that. And can you see my screen?
Yes, I can. Coming through.
All right, let's make this it's full screen, right?
Yep. Full screen.
All right, so we're talking today about dynamic consent and data protection with vCons. And in particular, we'll be talking about a draft we submitted into the working group just a few months ago.
Hmm.
And I think it begins to really start to highlight, the real power of vCons as it relates to its ability to protect um, people.
Yep.
And that's obviously one of the biggest reasons why I do this work. So for those of you who are not familiar with the vCon, let me just tell you very quickly, it's a new file format that's being developed out of the IETF. We expect it to go to an RFC status this year. And it's simply nothing more than a file. If you imagine that you've seen files that hold documents and files that hold spreadsheets, a vCon is a file that holds a conversation, and inside that conversation, inside that file, there's four areas of the vCon. The first is the parties, the people who are in the conversation. The second part is the recordings, and the recordings can be anything from audio and video, messaging, email. We've recently seen a lot of MCP dialogues be surfaced inside the dialogue. So it just so happens that the shape of a conversation between people and a bot and bots to bots are very similar because
Yep.
it's just conversations.
Yep.
But the beacon itself is actually, this is really determined for people, but people are using it for other reasons now, so which is kind of fun.
Cool.
The next part of that beacon is the analysis. All the times and places where that conversation was analyzed, so you compare the analysis with what was analyzed for all kinds of good reasons. We'll talk about some of them today. One good reason is if you wanted to check your work. So imagine that the dialogue was a WAV file and the analysis was its transcription. You could have put both in the same place and go, was the transcription correct? Which is one of our early beacon ideas, if you remember, down
Yep.
research it
Absolutely.
out. And then finally, the metadata. So, what is it about this beacon? Where did it come from? Is there other contextual information? Context being a big deal these days in terms of AI. So that's
Yeah.
where that goes. The whole thing can be wrapped up is in JSON, so any application developer can use it, and you can sign it, and you can encrypt it. And I'll say it one more time. The reason we do this is to protect people and feed robots. Um, and and of course, it is part of the IETF. So that means that it's done by the same people who brought you, the web and email, and OAuth, and the like. And so we one of the important things I'd like to mention here is, the IETF has a number of really great, ideas about it, and one of them is we believe in rough consensus and running code. So the specifications that end up being RFCs that we produce are produced by groups of people who do this for a living, who are experienced, who have done this, and who have written down what they did. So this is not something which, okay, now we have the standard, let's buy this and see if it works. This says, hey, it worked, and we wrote it down. So that's an important piece to put together. So it's not the only standard that we're going to be talking about today. I'll also be talking about the SCIT standard. So that's another document which we've kind of been growing up with. That's also going to RFC status this year. And SCIT stands for Supply Chain Integrity, Transparency, and Trust. And what it does is it allows you to take a piece of software and then to share it across networks and know that it hasn't changed. And this work was done in answer to some of the problems we've had in the past with malware into open source repos. We didn't know that it snuck in there. And it just so happens that beacons are able, just a piece of software, it's JSON, right? Nothing, just it's still software.
Yep.
Where using SCIT, you're able to record what happens to a beacon, and that becomes really important for to be able to manage the permissions and the consent that is associated with it, and that's going to become really important to this conversation. So SCIT is another one of the protocols from the IATF that we're going to be talking about today, and it's in the combination of beacons and SCIT is pretty magic. I've had such a great time working with the SCIT team. So many really brilliant people there. I really feel lucky to have met them. Couple of conceptual things. One of the things that I often hear is, well, okay, that's great. How do you make a beacon? What do you do with it? One of the frameworks that we wrote is called the conserver. And the conserver is a thing which transforms and manages beacons. So if you imagine that a beacon holds a recording of a conversation, conversations come from all kinds of places. They come from email services and chat services and telephone services, etc. These beacons often need a place to live and a place to be aggregated. So where we developed, before we spun off Beaconic, we were working at Strawlid, our home, our nest. And so at Beaconic, we had, it's not a big company, it's a BPO. We had maybe 200 people, 200 agents, 220 agents. But we had 5 communication systems that all generate beacons. We've got a dialer, we've got a queuing system, we've got, chat systems. And if you really wanted to just listen to your customer, you'd have to find all the conversations you had with the customer, which is everywhere. And I've heard a few people now saying, and I think it's totally true, that we finally have unified communications, but now it's just after they've happened. And so what a conserver does is takes all these inbound beacons that may or may not have all the information that they need and fattens them up, and then puts them into other pieces in the network.
Yep.
So for instance, a conserver may call Cloud AI service or local hardware to maybe transcribe it or analyze it, or maybe it might reach out to other information systems to add contextual data. A good example of that was somewhat at Strawlid. We help car dealers service their customers better. So when one of our customers gets a lead for a car purchase, it's our company that makes the first contact, and so we're introducing ourselves to introducing the dealership to the customer. And so it's really interesting to pair that conversation with the lead, because the lead is what the person wanted and what the car was about, and we can relate the conversation to the car. So we can say, okay, this car's had 15 conversations, and these 10 people didn't want it because it smelled like smoke. But these 5 people did because they smoke, right?
Yep.
So it's the craziest, but a bit of put together. And then once that beacon has gone from skinny to fat, we then push that out into the big world to be used as a better piece of data. So last time we had talked about MCP servers, which is what we had, which is our last talk, which is really kind of fun. But it doesn't have to be an MCP server. It could be just used as data or into enterprise apps. Lots of places it could go. And if you want to learn more about that, conserver.io is our open source, documentation site. A lot of my writing has gone there at conserver.io. Please go visit it. It's a fun place to be. So, and that's the conserve, and I want to make sure we talked about that as a concept because it'd be, it's well, that's we have a lot of those questions, and also I want just to touch on this one. Beacons enable responsible data management, and so what does that mean? So, as I just described, a beacon actually can contain a recording and a transcription. What But the transcription is what wrote down, and the
Yeah.
wave file is what my voice sounds like, and that's a real attack vector for deepfakes. If you know what I sound like, you can like fake me out. Now, I think I'm done, right? I stick a fork in me. I can be deepfaked all day if anyone would want to. It's not something that it's not gonna. I'm done. But that's not saying don't mean it doesn't need to be protected.
Hmm.
So one of the nice things about a vcon is you can make a new vcon that only contains the information you'd like to share, and then point back to the original vcon to say
Yeah.
this is where it came from, and only share the minimized version. So this is a real use case that we had with 211 of Kansas City, which is a citizen helpline for people who are in trouble. And it couldn't be a more private situation. You can imagine the emotional impact of being evicted or having your water shut off. One of the most traumatic things I've had to do in my last few years is to transcribe 17,000 recordings of citizens in trouble,
Wow.
and do the QA on that, and it was really difficult. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was, you think I walked away traumatized, but feeling really grateful that none of these things were happening to me today.
Yeah.
But also being pretty, pretty, cognizant of what happens to people. So
Yeah.
in this case, we have a citizen that was being evicted. Now, this is a case where the recording was from Sally, and it identifies her as being Sally, and of course, really, really personally dangerous to Sally. But the people who fund 211 can really find a lot of value in knowing where their funding is going to
Yeah.
redirect better funds into shared lessons. But they don't need to know it's Sally,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't really matter, Sally. So we make a new version of that beacon that points back to the old one that only contains a redacted version. The citizen is being evicted, not Sally.
Exactly.
And that allows us to share that part and then also back it up. Like, okay, is that really what she said? Well, yes, yes. We know how to redact files, even if the government doesn't. We can we can point back
Yeah.
at the one and improve it. And by the way, I want to continuously give a shout out to Dan Petrie, my co-author on the original draft and our co-author on the white paper. Me, you, Mitch, and Dan.
Exactly.
Right. And this is really coming out of Dan, and this is really kind of a beautiful design point. And I'm really grateful for Dan's work here. This is a great example of the great work he did.
Yeah.
So good on
Absolutely.
Dan.
Oh,
Good
yeah.
on Dan. Yeah, that was
And from
really
our first ever VCon hackathon, redaction was part of it. So yeah,
that's
it has
right.
been a theme throughout.
Very exactly right. Feed protect people and feed robots.
Yes, that's it.
That's what we're about. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's get into a little more of the details here about that. And so I know this. I heard yesterday, or when we were down at the show together a couple days ago, that there were 1,700 active AI regulation laws going through the various states.
Yes.
In the United States, of course, Europe has a bit of a jump on us. Yeah, listen, they do something better. I admit
Yes,
it.
exactly.
And so that's obviously an important topic for this, but I don't want people to think that we're trying to predict futures. We actually aren't. We already have data privacy laws. We always have data privacy work. We've got a lot of big existing framework and regulations around it. And so this is really talking about data privacy more so than AI regulation. Now you can use it for AI regulation, and we will. I'm sure we will. But we didn't have to predict what was going to be. One of the things I'd like to, just to put in people's head, um, uh, Supreme Court Justice Warren put it really simply that privacy is the right to be let alone. And that's what privacy actually means. And so when we talk about data privacy, it's just that. It's the right that you have to control how your information is collected, used, and shared and protected from unauthorized access or misuse.
Yeah.
And this is something that we don't have
Correct.
in generally, right? I think, although it's more sensitive to the younger, members of our society, all of us should be a little bit afraid of what's happening to the data that we've got out into the internet. It can
Yeah.
really, right? A lot of it's out there,
Oh, yeah.
and it's not to our benefit,
No,
frankly,
at all.
right? At all. And so we really haven't had the opportunity to have any sort of a way of getting there to understand how we could maybe manage that for everyone's best purpose, for the not only for the protection of the customer, but for the protection of the company's reputation. These are for most companies, the reputation is probably the most important thing they have.
Yeah.
Misusing data is a great way of ruining that reputation. So I just want to say that we're not predicting AI regulation. We're actually just talking about data privacy
Yeah.
here. Mhm. So what are your data subject rights? And so this is straight out of the GDPR. And we've expressly designed this to use the GDPR as our ruler for this, not because it has no other applicability. In fact, uh, there's many other countries and many other states like California that have very similar ideas around this. But the GDPR is the gold standard for how you manage data subject rights.
Yeah.
And so I just want to make sure that people understand that these are rights that they have as people, and you don't give them up. You can't. It's a right means you can't be taken away. Um, and so the right to be informed about what that your data has been collected. That's a simple one. Or you have the right to get it back. I would love for someone to call some of these larger contact centers and say, I would like you to tell me what you have of mine, all my recordings, and what you did with them. And you know what? The chances are they're not going to be able to.
No.
And however, once we're done with this presentation and people deploy these systems, they will. And I guess it's a good time for me to say that we're not telling you that we're going to catch all the bad guys. This is not a bad guy catching device. Except that what this is a way of letting the good guys do the right thing and then to prove it.
Yeah.
And then we can catch the good guys because they're not doing that. Right? It's the police like, okay, well, you're not doing it the right way. How are you doing it?
Yeah.
So that's really the basis of that. And so, you do have the right to give consent and to take it back. One of the things that we also have to contend with is consent. Well, what does consent mean? And what did I consent to? And can I take it back? And these are all your rights. You actually should be able to do this.
Yeah.
But today, we don't really have a very sharp version of what that would be. So these are your data subject rights, and this system is actually designed to fulfill all of these, even across networks.
Yeah.
Which is one of the more exciting things for beacons. So, so as a wrap up to that whole kind of intro, this is the background. That's what beacons are about. They're enable the responsible analysis. This is not going to go away. We've got transcribers everywhere. We've got Otter and Gemini, and they're listening. And there's IoT and there's microphones everywhere. We live in a surveilled world, and that's not
Yes.
going to go away.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to enable is that enable the responsible analysis of those recordings, right? And so we aren't. It's sort of like that horse is out of the barn, and if you are afraid of a world of mass surveillance, you ought to be. The IATF is a organization that believes that mass surveillance is an attack,
Yeah.
and it is an attack. But unfortunately, we're being attacked, and we're
Mhm.
not going to stop. And this
Yeah.
is an opportunity for us to be a little bit more defensive about how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the lawful basis extension. And I'm going to tell a little story first about one of my favorite companies, Apple, which has a great reputation, but slightly tarnished. As of late, they were hit with $100 million fine by the FTC for improper analysis of Siri recordings.
Yeah.
And uh, And there would have been an easy way for them to have fixed it, which would have been to record the consent for every Siri recording, so they knew if they could have done it or not, but they didn't.
Yeah.
All right. And so, what is the lawful basis extension? Well, basically, it allows you to record the reason why you think you ought to have this recording and what you're allowed to do with it, and all of that. So, a lawful basis extension it surfaces as an attachment part. Remember, they have the four parts, and this is a great example of context. Consent is part of the context of a conversation.
Yes.
And the mission of the IETF Beacon working group is to safely pass data between systems on a network, which is why we are doing it. And if there is information that needs to be passed between different parties on the network, I would be hard pressed to find a more important piece of information to pass than the consent that was gained. So the consent, so the lawful basis extension, we used to call it the consent attachment. So you see consent a couple times here. And I'll talk about that in a second, but it's not more than just consent. There's reasons that don't have anything to do with consent that you might want to own for recording, and that's a proof. That's kind of in this mix too. But just imagine that you were able to look at the recording and say, "I've given my consent for generative AI, text and data mining, but not to share."
Yeah.
And so we're talking about granular consent here, consent for purpose.
Yeah.
That not just consent. Remember, okay, I've given you consent, but is it forever? No, it's not. Here it ends. And how can you prove it? How can you prove that you gave consent? Okay, well, here's some proofs of the consent. Well, one of them is here's my consent form that I filled out when I wanted to purchase the car, and I had a recording, and I can tell you in the WAV file that says this call is being recorded for, quality assurance and robot purposes. And then it also tells you where to check to see if consent is changed.
Yeah.
Right, because this is a great opportunity to blow the document trumpet for a second. We've been so API focused for so long, and you and I had something to do with that. And it's fine. No, I said no. I'm very happy. Mashups are great. You know my background. You know how much I love mashups.
Yeah.
But there's another side of the coin, which is what's the opposite of an API? It's a document.
Yeah.
And the difference is kind of the operational model. By having this idea that you can say where to check, will follow the document. So if I email that document to you, you can go back and check where that stuff. If we had an API, how would I do that?
Mm-hmm.
Would I send software with you? Would I give you an? Right, it's much harder.
Yes.
This is the place where documents work great. And finally, maybe you need to say, okay, this is what I expect of you. This is your terms of service, right? I want you to check this link every day. So that's the basic idea. So let's stop for a second and talk about lawful basis. Hold on. Mm-hmm. So we talk about consent because traditionally in telco, right? This is a telco idea, but it's when we talk about consent, is can we call you, right? Did I get your consent to be communicated with?
Yeah.
And so with anyone who's been anywhere near text messaging, that consent is a big piece, to opt in, opt out. This is all around communications consent, which is great. And so we think about consent first, but it's not the only reason. So consent is a unique actual lawful basis, which is the only one that originates with me. So consent is the only time under the GDPR, and by the way, we use the GDPR because it's the gold standard, and that puts people first, right? So the base, so consent is the only one of the lawful bases that comes from me, which I can withdraw, right? So the other things here I can't withdraw. It's not coming from me, but consent is the only one here I can withdraw because it came from me. But that's not the only reason why you could process this data. Another reason is contract. I have a contract with an organization, and that organization has a relationship with the data subject or whatever. That's their business, not mine.
Yeah.
And I am under contract to do that. This has a real strong basis in existing laws for other areas. So This is basically what we do with payroll processors. So if you are an employee, you would be a data subject to your employer. That would be the data controller. Right? Those are the two ideas.
Hmm.
And the data processor would be the payroll service. Well, why does the payroll service have my social security number? Because they're under contract to my
Employer.
employer.
Yeah.
And so in between the employer and the payroll processor, it's called a DPA, a data processing agreement, which a lot of us are familiar with filling out. That DPA is the contract between myself and this. And so this actually has a lot of implications to how phone companies come to market. Very often because their heads are around consent and not contract, they are loath to provide recording services for their enterprises.
Yeah.
Yet, it is no difference between an enterprise asking the carrier to record the call on their behalf. And often I'd say, well, how can you possibly record the call if you haven't gotten consent for it? Well, the answer is, well, it's because you're under contract to the enterprise, and the enterprise is actually responsible, the data controller, you're just a data processor.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to get the consent. They have to get the consent, and you have a contract between you two. And so, which is very common for the enterprise, very common for other industries, not for us. And so this isn't new. This isn't crazy. This is exactly how other pieces of the world work.
Yeah.
And there's four other lawful bases I want to just touch on so we know what they are. Legal obligations. So, for instance, we also understand that some companies, like financial companies, have a legal obligation to record. Often when you're trading stocks, it has to be a recorded thing, and that's the law.
Yeah.
And so you don't. So if we don't ask for your consent to record you when you call Bear Stearns to, flush your derivatives, and that's because they have a legal obligation to record you. And if you say I don't want to be recorded, they will say, "Oh, I'm sorry, then we can't talk."
Yeah.
That's why that is. Also, vital interest. So there are times where, hey, gosh, if there is if someone's life is at stake, if there's a pressing biological, someone's going to be hurt, need, it is a lawful basis to do this. Rare, right? It's a rare thing to do. It doesn't happen often, but it is. It's one
Yeah.
of the lawful basis. So, and then public task is another. So if I'm a government, if I am doing a census, if I've got citizen-based work, that's the fifth one. And find legitimate interest. So after all this stuff is done, without breaking any sort of privacy laws, if you have a legitimate interest for your own business that you need to process this data, then you only also do that for legitimate interest. There's a really has kind of sort of like check and balance here. I'll just go back to this for a second, just so I can show you that. So you might think to yourself, well, wait a second, I can claim anything as legitimate interest.
Yeah.
Well, you can claim anything you want, really. But does it mean it's a legitimate interest? No, but there are legitimate interests. How do you check and balance that? Well, you have the right as a data subject to you have the right to access. You have the right to know how your data was processed.
Gotcha.
And so as you ask for your data back and you realize your data was processed, you can say, hey, wait a second, I'm not sure that's a legitimate purpose. And then you can you can restrict that processing, or you can ask to be forgotten.
Yep.
You have the right to be forgotten. So this is the check and balance that you have as a data subject that you can only exercise if you know it happened. And you only know it happened if you can access it. And welcome to VCons, because it tells you what those are. That's what happens inside the analyses. That's how your data was processed. You can put all the pieces together yourself. So those are the 6 lawful bases. That's why it's called the lawful basis extension.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I see basis, I keep wondering if it's the plural of basis is basis or basis. Do you have that problem? I have that problem.
So I'll just take it as a complex noun.
Right. Yeah, I have my degrees in engineering, although I have a minor in English. It's probably why I care, but I don't know. Okay, so let's go really into what this is what the lawful basis extension does. And so here are the key components. The party identification. So one of the interesting things is you may have many extensions. You may have many consents because there's many parties.
Mm-hmm.
right? And you can have one for every party. So it identifies which party that is has given their consent, which party is involved in this particular assertion, right? We gave your Alan, I'm sorry, we gave your data away because the ambulance needed it,
Hmm.
right? But it was Alan's data that we gave away.
Yeah.
It also identifies the dialogue or dialogues that we're discussing. So again, the dialogue could be email, it could be voicemail, it could be voice, it could be audio, it
Yeah.
could be video, right? It allows you to say, okay, this is how Alan in this particular dialogue gave his consent. And that allows you to have very granular levels of, okay, I've withdrawn my consent for that dialogue, but not other dialogues in the
Mhm.
same beacon. So we can
Yeah.
be about that. The next thing is temporal validity, and the extension itself actually gives some recommendations upon how long a consent should be given for based upon the use case, um, but it doesn't restrict it. It just gives you some basic
Yeah.
ideas of it. Right? It's not 10 million years. It's not 10 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. I always
Right?
feel a good example is where I was helping my sister buy a car, and
Hmm.
they took my data, but how long is that buying period? Well, it was over within about 3 months. So it's one of those where I'm happy for the data to be used for like 6 months,
This
maybe a
process.
year. Yeah, exactly. Because
Yeah.
we're looking to buy a car. But
Yep.
beyond that, I don't know whether I want those damn calls coming in. So again,
Right.
there's times where as a user, temporal validity, I think makes a lot of sense in terms of
Hmm.
enabling access, but then being able to change or withdraw.
Correct. Yeah, and it also fits in really nicely with the difference between a document and an API,
Yes.
right? If you have an API, you can say, hey, API, but because I can share it, I can attach it to an email, I could just like it's a file, right?
Yep.
Um, the temporal validity tells me, okay, I can check right now. Do I still have this rough thing? Even if someone
Yep.
didn't, withdraw their consent, do I have it, right? And then the next part of the extension is granular permission. So I did, talk about this in the last thing, which is, okay, so it's not just permissions for uh, communications. It could
Hmm.
be permissions for text and data mining. It could be, I'm giving
Yep.
you permission to train models on my data.
Yeah.
I'm giving you permission to blank, blank, blank. Those are granular permissions that allow you to uh, give your consent and withdraw it at a small level. And this actually is a fairly large problem in tech because we've only done just big consent. Um, it makes it very difficult for larger companies to be able to still communicate with you, even though you've withdrawn your consent from something else,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And then finally, cryptographic proof. So okay, fine. This is all good stuff, but is it real? Is it a
Yes.
replay attack? Is this a consent attachment which has gone from someplace else? Is there a way that I know that this consent is unique to this and not copied from somewhere else?
Hmm.
So just in the same way that we protect the VCon by signing it, we also protect the lawful basis extension by signing it.
Ah.
So once it's signed, you can't use it again for other things. It's only for this particular case there,
Yep.
and that helps you be very, really, strongly protective of that. And I want to thank Daniel Gilmore from the ACLU for pointing that out for us. And he
Cool.
was absolutely right. It was a very smart ad. So the VCon working group in action there, guys. But there's more. There's more. It's like overtime. It's like a,
Yep.
encore. So the first is it also contains the URL to the terms of service document. And as I mentioned in my payroll processing, part, this is not new law. We have terms of service. We have it when we sign up for a service. You can look at it. Well, we also allow that. So imagine that we've shared the VCon, but there's terms of service. The terms of service for this VCon are this VCon are you can do this, you can't do that. You have to check the consent ledger every day. You can't ship it out of the country.
Yep.
And I'm limiting my liability for, I'm really happy I didn't become a lawyer, even though it sounds like I've become a lawyer. Frankly. The next thing is the consent ledger. So as I said, by identifying where that active consent is being held allows me to go back and say, do I still have consent? Can
Gotcha.
I still do this? Is it still? So that answers the question, well, wait a second. I'm going to withdraw my consent, but my file's still out there.
Hmm.
How did that happen? So I withdraw the consent, but how do I get my file back?
Yep.
Well, it's the consent ledger itself that actually allows you to have an active in place to do that, and we'll show you that in a minute.
Exactly. So if you're
Uh,
a good guy, you check the consent ledger. If
it
you're a
must,
bad actor, then you don't.
you don't let the good guy do the right thing and prove it.
Exactly.
Yep. And then finally, a third spec that we're touching on in our works, the AI preferences
Hmm.
working group that's working on, giving definitions. So what does it actually mean to text and data mine or train on a model? That's a lot of hard work and hard thought that's happening in another work group in the IETF, and we support that and we contain that. So as we express uh, our consent, granular consent, we are adopting the AI pref vocabulary so that we have real clarity around what we mean by what we're consenting to. And that allows someone to actually understand what they've done.
Yep.
Uh, I keep thinking about the pharmaceutical commercials we have here in America, right? Where
Yep.
you've got, well, I think this is very similar. So, if you're outside of America, jealous, but
It's
in
just some of the
here.
conditions in the medical adverts may cause anal seepage, and it's just like, pardon, what?
Exactly, because bleeding from the eyes. It's like 5 seconds of you're going to be better, except when you're not.
Exactly.
And so, it's just too much to actually be able to listen to and understand. There's no
Yes.
practical way that you can go through all of this
No.
inside of conversation with an agent.
Yeah.
By being on this call, you consent to it's just too much.
Yep.
Uh, this helps us really manage
Gotcha.
that problem. Okay, I like to show the proof. So this is actually an example of an extension that this is what it looks like. It's just JSON. This is any programmer can do this. Lovable will run with this. It's
Yep.
not high science. And so you see some things, expiration and what the terms of service is, where does it apply, and how long is it good for? So it is easily readable by any piece of software. It's not like you had to go and you know back in the day when we were doing H323, we had these ISDN homologations and 2 months worth of testing in some guy's lab that you paid 50 grand for to make sure it
Oh,
actually worked.
yeah.
This ain't that. This
Yep.
is simply very accessible, very, very easy to read.
Yep.
So I like to get real for a second. Now, here's the next thing I want to talk about for a second. This is the life cycle part. Talked about a lot of basis. Now let's talk about life cycle. Um, and and so that you heard my tagline: consent, unlike love, is not forever.
Yep.
Uh, I am 3 days from my 20th wedding anniversary. Uh, so it's really, really, I'm so happy for it too. I can't tell you how happy I am for that event. But consent can be withdrawn, and it will be withdrawn a lot.
Hmm.
And so if you recall that skit picture I showed at the beginning, this is actually kind of how that kind of works. So as we create vcons, we can record that vcon was made by this agent, and
Yep.
that vcon can be by using skit. We can say, okay, skit, we're going to write to your ledger an immutable ledger, something that you can't repudiate, that says I made this,
Yep.
and there it is, and it's now on that ledger. Now, this in and of itself is an amazing moment because this lets us have a lot better answers to deepfakes, right? I can't
Yes.
tell you if the agent was a robot or the customer was a robot and they're just talking into a speaker. I can't tell you that, but I
Yep.
can tell you that I actually recorded that sound. It was me who recorded that sound, and that I can assert because I used my credentials to sign it and I put it on the immutable ledger always to be there.
Yep.
Now, I didn't put the data of the recording on the ledger because it's immutable. I can't take it away. It's there forever. Just kind of
Hmm.
past the point. But what I could do is hash it, sign it, make sure that I know what that signature is, and I can save the signature on the ledger.
Yeah.
So the signature, you can't, unwrap the signature and see the transcript,
Hmm.
right? It doesn't work that
Exactly.
way,
Exactly.
right? But just like a password, I can go, okay, so I can tell you, okay, this is the real one because it matches the signature, and the real one says that this guy made it.
Hmm.
And that's on the ledger. And then as things happen to the VCon, so maybe Rosie the robot took this VCon and processed it. I did
Hmm.
something with it. I can put
Yeah.
that processing in the VCon. I can also put that event onto the same chain.
Yeah.
So now I've also indelibly, asserted that I transcribed that audio. And that helps to answer the second one of the other important pieces of digital rights is what happened to my data? How is my data processed?
Hmm.
You think it was a legitimate interest? I do not.
Yeah.
And that processing, now having been recorded on the ledger, is now there for the world to inspect and to audit.
Hmm.
And the same thing happens when the customer says, I want to be forgotten because that was not a legitimate interest.
Yeah.
Forget me. I'm exercising my right to erasure.
Oh yeah. Or they change job, and they want to, the conversations they were part of are no longer relevant to the job they're currently in, so they want to be forgotten.
Yeah,
To be
sure,
part of
absolutely right. All that, absolutely right. I don't know if your father ever said that to you. I brought you into this world and I'll take you out.
that. Maybe. Oh,
uh, oh my God, love that.
parents. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? All right. So all of these different events that happen to the VCon are called life cycle events, and that's what we're talking about in the life cycle side. So that's another draft that we've put into the IETF to identify what are the major life cycle events that we should record on the ledger so that we can enable auditing. We can have a common vocabulary about what's happened to your stuff, right? So it comes in four places. The first is the lifecycle management. I made it, I changed it, I deleted it.
Yeah.
And because I'm just putting the ID of the VCon, the event, and then basically a hash of what event I did to it. Those three things. I can now look at my ledger and go, okay, this VCon was created at that time, and I can prove it. This VCon was enhanced at this time, and I can prove it. And
Mhm.
that allows me to distribute that VCon between organizations because the information of the life cycle is on the ledger.
Yeah.
And that also enables the second set of rights, which is consent rights.
Mhm.
So because the ledger is containing these events here, I can also say I am going to withdraw my consent for text and data mining, and that itself goes on the ledger with the VCon ID, and that allows you to say, okay, I'm going to withdraw my consent, and everybody down the line who is checking that ledger will also see it
Yeah.
and revoke it, and coordinating it between systems. Again, the
Exactly.
good guys doing the right thing, right?
Exactly.
Right. This is also the foundation of how you audit this, right? So auditing becomes, possible
Hmm.
because you check the ledger
Yeah.
against the reality, and they should match.
Yep. Yep.
And when they don't match, bad. When they do match, good. And so when I said before, if you're not doing it this way, how are you doing it? Well, here are the things that they would have to do in a non-standard way to prove that they were good people. But here we're giving you a standard way, an open standard way.
Exactly.
Okay, the next one is data processing and enhancements. So this allows us to know when things have changed. And so one of the truisms of AI, and particularly in the work that we're doing, is there's really no difference between a deep fake that's being injected into an AI pipeline versus malware being injected into a repo. There's
Yeah.
no fundamental difference here.
Yeah.
And so what this this allows us to do is to say, okay, every time it's changed, we know who changed it. We know who did that because that change could have a tremendous effect, like downstream. Just imagine just a really easy attack vector. I'm working for a financial firm, and I've got all my recordings, and I insert into the transcription, as a bad actor. Okay, I'm a bad guy, and
Yep.
then and I say I put it in the middle of the transcription, and I also allow Thomas to have complete control of my financial accounts, right? Which I think is a great idea, personally, but probably not you, right?
Yep.
So,
Exactly.
so this what this allows you to do is, hey, this thing was changed.
Yep.
That thing was
Exactly.
changed, but it wasn't on the skit ledger. The skit ledger doesn't say it was changed. Is it real? Right?
Exactly.
Is it real? And going back to the very first part, it also allows me to say, listen, I listened to the recording, and that's not the transcription.
Yep.
I can do that too, right?
Exactly.
And then finally, this allows this complete automated compliance and governance. And one of them, I'm not saying it's intentional, but my God, there's a lot of legal fees get paid because we don't really know what's compliant,
Yes.
right? You just can't
Yep.
assert it because it's too complicated.
Yep.
But you know what? You could do a lot of it automatically. A lot of it
Exactly.
not so complicated. So
Yep.
this allows that to happen as well, and that's why we do all this stuff. Okay, so and this allows this final picture here, which puts it all together. So imagine that you have a communication system that a customer's been involved with that results in a VCon. Um, that VCon, as it ingresses into the conserver from whatever information system it does, um, uh, part of the job of a conserver is to look at what happened and record what it sees.
Yep.
And so the conserver, as it received this VCon, would say, "Oh, here I got a VCon," and maybe it has a consent attachment because it's been done by somebody else, or maybe it doesn't because the phone company did it for me and they don't know what the consent is.
Yep.
So the conserver might add the consent, might start this process off, or might add to the process, and that adds to the transparency ledger. As that VCon is shared across network boundaries, the far end conserver does the exact same thing.
Yep.
So, okay, I received it. Hey, look, this is where your data went. Okay, now we can answer that question. Where did my data go? Well, the conservers are tracking it.
Gotcha.
I think conservers go where people where VCons land for the simple reason that they want to be a good guy.
Yes.
They want to be within the law. They want to keep their reputation. A conserver allows you to do that to protect yourself.
Exactly.
Right. And that gets added to the transparency ledger. That then the customer can express their data rights by going to the transparency ledger, not the conservers, the independent of all of it, going back to the immutable ledger, going, hey, how was it processed?
Yeah.
I can see it.
Yep.
I can also say I want my data withdrawn, and I can put that request on the transparency ledger, and
Yep.
that request then triggers the conservers that are every day going, what's going on here, right?
Yep.
To look at the transparency ledger, go, wait, this guy is withdrawn. Now I get it returned.
Yep.
And that enables governance because you can audit the transparency ledger versus the reality and do they match? And that governance could be from a civic level, it could be a government audit, it could be an enterprise audit.
Yep.
Me as a enterprise security team need to govern my conversations because they are sensitive. And so
Yep.
and that's so this is kind of how this works. And I really love this picture actually of like, and I think about all the great work we've done as a team, me, Alan, everyone. What a nice clean way of making the world a better place.
Exactly. And that auditing, I mean, that can be done automatically.
Right. Yeah.
You
To
know,
be absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know,
And by a third party. It doesn't have to be
exactly, exactly.
absolutely. Or many
You
third
know,
parties. You can audit each other. Right.
well, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you can
Yeah.
check yourself, am I clean? And you can, expose because you do that. You must really do that as first step to basically make sure there's no glaring, things
Yeah.
that are happening, and then you can, expose it for anybody to check.
That's right.
So,
Exactly. Yep.
and that automation, it's if you're motivated, it enables you. And a lot of these are going to have defaults. So, an organization will have defaults around how the timing and what rights people
Mhm.
expect. So it's not going to, but a high load on individuals. It's just, hopefully the good guys will basically set the defaults so people feel trusted, feel confident in the data and how it is being exposed and used. So
Reputation is a great motivator.
exactly. That's it.
Yep. All
100%.
right. So, you want to learn more? Great. First of all, the basis of the conserver is open source, and it's the Beacon Dev organization. Go get it. We've got lots of repos up there. My company, Vconic, has professional and extensions above this that are proprietary that we license is how we make our money.
Yeah.
But the basis of what we're doing is open source. It's also based on an open standard. I encourage you, if you're interested in any of this, to get involved or at least support our work at the IETF. The internet is for everybody. Remember that the internet uh, belongs to everybody and nobody. And there aren't protocol police. You won't get arrested for doing the wrong thing, not
Yeah.
by us, but we want to help you do the right thing.
Yeah.
And the open documentation site is conserver.io. That's a lot of my writing and cues up there. So if you're more of a reader, want to get some other ideas, that's a great place to do it. And then the next ITF is in Shenzhen, China. It is my first time to mainland China, and I will be there and with the other, working group members and the other delegates and participants of the IETF. So if you're in the neighborhood, stop by. I hear the dumplings are great, and I would love to shake your hand. So that's our talk.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Now, with the consent extension, so it's been proposed. Is there a timeline on when you think it'll be ratified?
Well, yeah. So the process is that working group members write individual drafts. This is an
Yep.
individual draft. We have 4 or 5 drafts that have been adopted by the working group. This is
Okay.
not adopted yet. I would expect that it would
Okay.
be. And so
Gotcha.
when it becomes adopted, this is the first part of the awareness process that we
Yeah.
start to talk about it and say, okay, this is actually important for us.
Okay.
It becomes
Understood.
adopted by the working group, and then after adoption, then it becomes ratified. So we're at the adoption
Okay.
stage, and I would expect this to be adopted this year.
Cool.
Sure.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I think this will become very important for anybody working in consumers in the consumer
Yeah.
space. Monteza, you've raised your hand. Do you have a
Hey, Ron
question?
Taser.
You're on mute.
Hi,
Hey.
Hi.
how are you? Sorry, I was a little bit late in coming today, but it was a very fascinating talk. I think the last time I was here, I mentioned something about writing like a MongoDB
Yep.
Yes.
interface. I actually made a pull request.
Oh, great.
Um, so
Great. Thank you. Oh, I'll look right for it. Thank you. Great job.
Yeah, I had some bug fixes to do before I made the pull request, but I finally made it. The other thing is, I would love to be part of this working group because I'm working on something that I want to propose to the W3C as a standard,
Hmm.
and it's called JSON LD-EX.
Hmm.
If you want, I can drop in a link or I can share my screen,
Yeah, please
whatever
do.
works.
Please do. But by the way, the first step in getting involved with the working group is to subscribe to our mailing list. And I know that it sounds kind of old school, but one of the things I think it's important for everyone to understand that the internet is for everybody. And there's 6 billion of us, and some of us have more access than others. By having it an even playing field and having everything on the email address allows us to make it transparent and accessible.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Um,
Oh, great.
Yeah. If you want, I can share my screen and do a quick walkthrough because it's a little can I do that,
Yeah,
Alan, if
sure, go for
you
it.
don't mind?
Mhm.
Okay. Let me just share my screen right here. Okay. So essentially this is it's very interesting because of what you just said. I was in the process of adding some of this consent stuff
Yeah.
into JSON LD-EX. So if you're familiar with JSON LD, it's essentially linked data in JSON.
Mhm.
And I've created like a suite of, it's actually me and my group, we've created a suite of extensions to it. And what this does is it allows you to annotate JSON with things like context, type, confidence, and propagate this between linked JSON documents.
Hmm.
And this is kind of, I've built like an extensive interop
Mm-hmm.
with things like Owl, time series, CBOR, Bravo.
Oh.
Um, and if you, this is available as both a pipey package as well as a NPM package.
Great.
Um, but if you take a look at the Python, there's a part here that was very interesting, which is the data protection part. And I didn't know whether to add it, but your talk today kind of inspired me to just say, hey, I'll add it.
Fantastic.
So
Excellent.
there's like a privacy compliance annotation, and this goes directly into JSON LD. So you
Yes.
don't have to implement an extra processor or like extra um, kind of like a external ledger authority.
Mm-hmm.
It
Hmm.
kind of self-exists within the infrastructure. So it has all the consent tracking, consent active.
Right.
And in my pull request, I added a minimal extension to the vcon MCP server. So if you want to take a look at that, and I would love to be part of a working group where I can kind of contribute with what I have here.
Oh, we'd love to have you. You know, we everyone's invited, and everyone is. Yeah, we'd love to have you there. So the next opportunity is in Shenzhen. You don't have to go to Shenzhen; it's everything's remote, so
Yeah.
you can log in from your computer. Although you won't get the dumplings that way, but no,
Okay.
that's on you, right? So thank you so much, and thank you for that pull request. I'll get right to it. That's wonderful. And then we got here together, right? We got to here as a group. So thank you for your contribution. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much,
Thank you
Mateza.
for allowing me
Yeah.
to
No,
contribute.
oh, no problem. Thanks,
Do we
Mateo.
have any other questions? I know there are a few other people on. If not, because we're coming up on time. Oh, wow, we're over time. I apologize. So, okay, cool. Okay, we're good. Thank you so much to everyone for being part of this. Thomas, thank you so much for what I
Thank
think will
you.
become a very important part of
I believe so.
beyond VCon. I see this as basically around AI, around privacy protection. That consent extension will be, I think, required because of user demand. And that's
I believe
part of
so.
but all we
Yeah,
need to do is educating people on what rights they actually have. Because you just assume Google or Meta take your data and run to the hills with it for
right.
perpetuity, and that's not the case.
That's the case.
Absolutely.
That's the case.
Cool. So thank you so much, everyone. I will get this published later today and speak to you soon.
Thank you. Take
Bye
care. Bye bye.
bye.